if you could talk about your connection to where it was shot and sort of how that reflected on this vision of a story that you wanted to tell.
Yeah, so I'm from suburbs of Birmingham, Alabama, and then we shot this outside of Bessemer, Alabama, which was surprisingly close to where I grew up, but I'd never been to these places. And Billy wrote the film, most of it while living in Alabama, but is from near here?
Yeah.
Lexington?
Yep. Lexington, Massachusetts.
I'm just going to talk on behalf of Billy. This is great. What'd you think of Alabama? You live there?
I lived in Alabama for a little while.
Roll Tide, roll. But yeah, the script originally wasn't set in Alabama, but it was written while he lived there. And then when we talked about making it, I was like, I really want to go back there. I'd much rather go to Alabama and shoot that and try to get the textures right than go to Wyoming, which I know nothing about.
So it was originally Wyoming as opposed to Manhattan?
Yeah, it was never Manhattan.
I feel like I can just yell. I set it in Wyoming while I was living in Alabama, even though I was writing it based on Alabama because I was afraid of offending Alabama. And I didn't have as much of a connection to Wyoming.
There are more people in Alabama, in fairness.
That's true. Yeah, the odds of offending people in Alabama, yeah, that's true. And then Daniel just wanted to lean into it and wanted to offend people in Alabama.
I mean, as a nerdy film critic, two films that it reminded me of, whenever you're pulling a car out of a lake, I always think of Psycho. And whenever you have women being smarter than every other person, especially when they're in law enforcement, I think of Fargo. I'm just wondering.
Those are good movies.
Yeah, they're not bad. So I'm wondering. I'm wondering, were there specific things, not just in terms of when you're writing, but you got to explain this to a cast and a crew that are like, "What the hell are we making here?" Is it just sometimes easier to say, "No, we got it. We're doing Fargo, but they fuck a horse."
I mean, that is the easiest way to pitch it is Redneck Fargo. But for me, I love awkward textures in human behavior, and so like I rarely talked to the cast about like how to be funny, so much as just kind of encouraging them to not worry about getting every line right or like that awkwardness is great and fine and that take was great.
But are you one of those directors that hands a bunch of Blu-rays to your cast and say, "Here, watch these because this is what I'm going for"?
No.
Perfect.
And especially with this one, because the script was like pretty close to what you just watched, and I really loved the script. So the humor came from that, and the tone came from that. And so like most of the conversations with the cast were just about the honest truth of these characters, you know, and just like, oh, do you know people like this? Like let's add some emotional truth to this, because I think that's what'll make it even funnier, is if you see yourself in these characters.
I mean, what I love about your films, for those that hadn't seen your previous film, Swiss Army Man, yes, thank you, please. I'm evangelical
Thanks.
for that film.
I co-wrote and co-directed that, and Billy gave maybe 5 or 6 rounds of brutal notes. So thanks, Billy.
But as an early champion of that film, it was one of those films that I understood why people hated it, and I still felt bad for them. I describe it as crazy as it is of like Moulin Rouge. Like if you're 5 minutes into Moulin Rouge, you're like, oh fuck no, like I'm out of here. Or if you're there, you're like, screw it, I'm like around for the ride. This is another film that I think can immediately people are going to shut down, but those who are here and are along for the ride are for that. You seem to trust audiences. You seem to trust that you are able to challenge us and give us something that we're not necessarily going to know we want, but when we finally see it, we can enjoy. Are there ever moments of doubt? Are there ever moments like, oh my God, I just want to make a straight-ahead network drama?
Yeah, there's constant doubt. But unfortunately, what interests me is this kind of stuff. So like I get bored pretty easily in other films. So I'm just kind of constantly trying to stay interested. And we do test our crazy ideas, but like an idea has to be big and weird enough, and I have to have not seen it to want to make it, and then it's just doubt from there on out.
Perfect. So, was it weird going back home to make a film?
Yeah, it was weird and so rewarding. There's a lot of the crew and cast were people I knew growing up, and it was it was fun because the fear with this was that like people would think we were just making fun, and so it made us hold ourselves to a higher standard, because I was like, oh my god, if we do this like full on the offensive way, like my family and my dead grandparents are gonna be so disappointed, you know. But also like it, so then we were able to kind of like constantly try to dig a little deeper and try to get authentic and hear real stories, and it was a lot easier to walk into places and ask for favors and be like, oh, I grew up near here, like I know this, Roll Tide.
Especially when you didn't tell them what the movie was about.
Especially when we said that the name was called On the Run.
Starring Charles Grodin.
Because the death of Dick Long sounds pornographic, but On the Run sounds like some guys on the run.
Amazing.
But yeah, it was great.
Have you shown it to an Alabama audience yet?
We did one small Alabama screening for cast and crew, and it was a blast. There was one of our PAs brought his mom, and she seemed really uncomfortable during the scene where Zeke pets the horse, like
Shirtless.
Yes. I thought she was going to walk out, but it seems to be going over well, and we played Georgia, and I think there's a certain. I always say that like one of the things people don't realize about like the rural South is that like people's favorite thing to do is tell embarrassing stories about rednecks. Like they're not. It's not like people are oblivious that that's funny. The bummer is that the rest of the world thinks that's everyone there. You know, so my hope is this movie like fits into that, where they can see that like not everyone in this movie is like an embarrassment, but some of them are, and how fun is that? You know, like these are the kinds of stories my family told,
and it's
over Thanksgiving.
And this is, I believe, your first solo. I'm not crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What was that transition like? Obviously, you made your last film with Daniel 2, Daniel 1, whichever one you fight over. I don't know which twin came up first.
I say 2. It's alphabetical. So I normally work with another Daniel, and we go by Daniels, and we made a whole bunch of music videos and met here in Boston.
If you could talk about the transition about, first of all, how one collaborates with another director at the best of times seems actually harder than doing it your own, but there must have been obvious transition for you as well.
Yeah, I'm a kind of serial collaborator, and so in college I like made movies for my comedy troupe, and we would co-write everything, and I would direct, but really it was us making a movie together. So I kind of bullied Dan into co-directing movies with me, but for like 10 years, Billy and I have been developing things together that we wanted to make. So it really didn't feel like I was solo directing. It just felt like the division of labor was slightly different, but I made a movie with my other best friend. Yeah.
I can add on to that. There was a period of time where I was trying to get this movie made, obviously, and there was a brief period where we had started talking about trying to get this made, and Daniel's manager was pretty reasonably like, hey, you just made a movie and won an award at Sundance, and it had movie stars, and it played all over the world. Maybe making a movie for less money about horse fucking isn't the best next step. And I had been like, I understand, Daniel, it's okay. Like, if you don't want to make this movie, it's fine. It's not going to affect our collaboration or our friendship. And then I had this moment where I was like, I don't think I've actually campaigned for him to direct this movie. I only told him it's okay not to direct it. So I took him out. So we went out for beer and wings, and I told him that I didn't care about his career. And I just wanted to make this horse fucking movie. And he was like, all right, okay, cool. So that was the whole transition in a nutshell.
And was A24 aboard right away?
They were. I was so lucky that they were supportive. I mean, right away. They took a few weeks. They ran it up the ladder.
But,
I don't know what kinds of conversations
are you sort of
they
like,
had.
as Christopher Nolan is to Warner, are you to A24? They basically are trusting you to do what you're going to do.
So far, which is, I'm so grateful. I'm going to ride that until they find out my dark secrets.